Alright, so this is just going to be my load data for 55 grain Sierra Game Kings. And we're starting off with the 1x Fire Starline brass. So my barrel is an 18-inch Craddock, so it's a 1 in 8 twist. And I've definitely gone sub MOA loads with it, 0.5, 0.8 inches for 10-shot groups. Just going some quick tips. This is mostly for beginners, so if you guys have been reloading for a while, kind of skim through the video, and then if you have some tips for me, then leave them in the comments so that everyone else can also improve from that. Quick tip on shoulder bumping, because I saw the Air Cortina video on how to do it, and that just made it way easier. For example, I just chose a random, I think I have an 8,000 shim on it, but you basically put the die so it's seated all the way in, size a piece of brass, and then measure the amount of bump that you have from that. For example, you can see I want a 2,000 shoulder bump, and with this 8,000 shim, I have a 4,000 shoulder bump, which means I have to have a 2,000th greater shim, which means I move up from this 8,000 shim to a 10,000 shim. And then if you guys can see, when you move to the 10,000 shim, you will get a 2,000 shoulder bump, and you could try it with a couple of pieces of brass. If your annealing is consistent and your die is consistent, you'll get about the same. You might get plus or minus half a thousand. That's like about the precision of my calipers anyways. And then what I do is the first round that I test for the shoulder bump, if I do have some adjusting I do to my dies, I'll mark that with a Sharpie, so I can kind of use that as like a Fowler round. Not sure if it makes too much of a difference, to be honest, in a semi-auto platform like an AR-15, but I just do that to keep everything as consistent as possible. This video might be a little out of order because I kind of was on a call with some guys when I was recording this, so I'm doing the voiceover after. But for the trimming portion, usually I'll either start with the shortest if I don't have too many, or I just use the one that I marked with the Sharpie, and I'll trim that one until it just gets cut by the trimmer, and then I'll go 1,000th or anything below that. It doesn't really matter too much as long as you're consistent with the rest of them. After that, just deburr the flash hole. I don't know how important this is. I haven't noticed my group change, to be honest with this, so this is definitely, in my opinion, an optional step in the reloading process, but who knows. You do notice the flash hole for some of them are definitely getting cut more than the others, but on the target I haven't noticed much of a difference with my skill level. At least if you're using the NAS3 cases, I definitely recommend you use the graphite lube to get uniform or consistent bullet seating. I don't always do it. I'm kind of trying to do it now because I tried it on the NAS3 cases, which you guys don't know, those are the bimetal steel cases that allow you to load to higher pressures, and for those, when I did not use the dry lube, the bullet seating was very tight. There was a lot of force needed, and it deformed a lot of my bullets. So what I did was I used the dry lube on all of them, and that made it way smoother and more consistent. For this one today, I'll be using H322. I've never actually used this powder for 223. I've only used it for 458 Win Mag. I think I've used it for 308 like one time, but I kind of just have 1 pound of this sitting around, might as well just use it. I have this TRX 925, the Creedmoor Sports Scale. That one has been pretty good for me. It does require some double checking because the scale can drift, but I used to have that other one with the auto check there, but that thing is way too expensive. At least for me, the difference between my group size with this and the more expensive scale has not made a difference, so I downsized. And then the Gen-X, I think that's how it's pronounced, the small rifle primers. These were pretty cheap, and out of all of them that I've used, I've not had any issues with, light strikes or anything. Not just my rifle, a couple other AR-15 uppers. Never had an issue with those. 223, 6.5 Grendel, small rifle primer 308. Did not have an issue with that either. If you can get those, I definitely would recommend it to save a couple of cents. It does add up when you're trying to save money on reloads. I reload with the Dillon 550C. I think this is not even the C version. This is like an old one, but what I would do for the process for this one, if I'm not using the powder funnel, automatic, dispenser, I would just take it off, but I'll keep the powder funnel in there and just put a plastic funnel on top, and then I could pour it down into the case, just so it's easier to just have the dies all set up the same. You don't have to take anything out. And then for the bullet seating, usually what I do if I move to a different bullet, I'll back the die out all the way. So I have a Forster bullet seating die, and just back it out, get the measurement, and then back it in until you get whatever length you're going for. And then what I do is after I load the round, I'm not crimping for these ones usually. I don't crimp unless it's plinking rounds, like in large bulks. But what I do is I organize them by column. So column 1 would be the lowest powder charge, and I'll move up to the right, and I just write it down in my notebook so I remember which is which. And another quick tip is on the side stand of your press, I usually have magnetic tape. I think it's 3M tape, but I just have that on the side, and you can put all the Allen keys that you use for your press on there, and it makes it a lot easier to always have access to those. The other powder I'll be using is the American Reloading. It's called MP425. From what I've seen, this one I think is pretty similar to accurate 2230 powder, which I have used a lot for 458 458, 308, and 223. We'll see how that goes, because the 425 is the one I've been using for my previous large bulk. I think probably 3,000, 4,000 rounds. And that powder, you know, with the Arms Core 62 grain that I've been using for plinking, you know, maybe like 3 MOA or something. Not impressive at all, but it is cheap, so definitely want to try the extreme plated bullets. Because I have had good results with the extreme bullets for my 458, you know, sub MOA with that. It's a little more expensive than the Arms Core, but hopefully the group size shrinks down a bit. If you can't tell, my camera was really bad at recording the shooting on target, because my tripod's very flimsy and it's like on the table with the muzzle blast and everything. So I'm just gonna edit that out. These are the results so far. I'm gonna try to keep everything documented now, just because it doesn't get lost in my notebook as usual. And you know, online, maybe you guys have a reference. If you guys haven't had too much experience loading different powders, you guys maybe see which ones you want to try yourself. I usually use a little bit more magnification, but at the time of the recording, I kind of offloaded some of my other scopes. So, but for future reference, I will probably be switching to my 6-24 Athlon that I picked up. H322 is not the best. These two groups right here, the 22 grains and the 22.2 grains, that looks like a pretty good grouping. I'm not too sure though, because I could try it around here again if I were to use this powder again. But and then here, this is my test group. This was my NAS3 77 grain Sierra Match King load. I think this was like 15-20 shot group, tiny bit more, but I wasn't really trying to go too crazy with that because I have tested that a lot before. And the American reloading powder looks kind of bad to be honest. So the 25 grain looks okay, but the rest are pretty bad. Could try going higher to 5.56 pressures, but I don't think it's really worth it if it's just for plinking around, you know. They looked okay, but standard deviation for the two good ones is 16 and 19 feet per second, which is kind of terrible. Maybe see if it gets better or not. I probably won't even use this powder that much anyways after I run out of this tub. If you guys are curious about any powders, you could let me know if you guys want me to test with them. I don't know if I'll revisit the Game Kings yet, but the next one for 223 at least will be the Extreme, the plated 55 grain. Got those for pretty cheap. And the Extreme, I've gotten pretty good results with the 458 Win Mag, maybe like 0.7 MOA, 5-shot groups with that. And I have pretty good groups with the 45 ACP Extreme plated bullets also, I think 230 grains. I will be doing some more data on for 308 in my Garand, and then my 7.5 by 55 Swiss for my K31. But I do need to get the scope set up for the K31, so we'll see how that goes. And also a 300 Blackout, I've been wanting to tackle that because one of my friends picked up a Blackout and haven't done too much load data for that because we had a big trip and we kind of just wanted to get anything that was working. But probably going to be using N120 with 150 grains just because I've been using N120 for my 458 plinking also. Try to get some overlap between those. I do have H110 though that I might restock. I'm considering a 45 Colt, so if I do get that, then I could use H110 and 300 Blackout and 45 Colt, but we'll see if I ever get to that. But I did pick up some other powder. So my 425 powder actually just ran out. I used all of that on plinking, but I did pick up this one, MP425, and I got another one which is kind of interesting. This one they said on paper can be used for 308 and 223, so I might try that on the K31 also, the American Reloading 513. So these are slightly different. Let me know if you guys are interested in any other load development or what you guys want me to try experimenting with for my reloading process. And yeah.